Today, we wanted to show you how to make one of my favorite dim sum dishes, beef balls or陈皮牛肉球. Now, as you might be expecting from dim sum dishes at this point, these aren't your run-of-the-mill Chinese meatball. A good dim sum beef ball is somehow simultaneously super tender while also having a bit of a springy bite. So quick word of warning that getting there definitely takes a bit of technique. So to get started with dim sum beef balls, you'll need beef. This is 500 grams of a cut called shangnao, which is basically the upper part of the chuck primal cut. If you've got a good butcher, top blade is basically the exact same thing, but any sort of lean chuck would get the job done. Now to soften this up a bit and extract some of the myoglobin, we'll transfer this over to a pot of cool water and let it soak for at least 1 hour. An hour later, squeeze out any excess liquid and you should see that your soaking water's gotten pretty obviously red from this whole process. Now, any fat or membrane still in your beef is going to make your life a little more difficult later on, so at this point just try your best to get some of that out. This is chuck, so you probably won't be able to get it all, just do what you can. Now take your pieces of beef and get it into a dice, and now it's time to settle in and just start chopping. I know that this process here can sometimes be a bit intimidating, but unfortunately supermarket ground beef is no substitute. The reason is that we're not trying to get this into a mince, we're trying to break this down into a paste. So you might be able to use a food processor, but we haven't tested it ourselves. Now, unlike pork, doing this to beef does require a bit of elbow grease, so after 15 minutes of chopping and folding, you should be looking at a more uniform whole, something that's about this consistency. Toss that in a big bowl, and we are ready for step 2, mixing. So to mix, first toss in 10 grams of salt together with 6 grams of jianshui alkaline water. Now, as we went over in the dim sum ribs recipe, baking soda out of the box is no real sub for this kind of Asian lye water. But if it's tough to source, feel free to swap for the baked baking soda method that we outlined in that video. Now give that a thorough stir with your vintage stand mixer on high in one direction only. Then slowly start to add 150 grams of ice cold water bit by bit. What we're doing is developing the myosin in the beef to help this come together into a stickier whole. Melted fat gets in the way of this process, which is why the water's got to be super cold. Interestingly, this whole approach actually has a lot of similarities to Western-style emulsified sausages like mortadella, but after about 7 minutes of stirring, it should be a nice even paste and leave subtle streaks on the side of the bowl like this. Transfer that over to something more refrigerator-sized, thoroughly wash your hands, cover with some plastic wrap, and leave that in the fridge for 3 hours to let the beef continue to break down. So these beef balls are called陈皮牛肉球because one of their dominant flavors is陈皮, dried and aged tangerine peel. Here we're using 2 grams worth, and to prep your peels, first reconstitute them in hot, boiled water for 20 minutes. The hot water will help remove some of the bitterness. Then after they're softened, do the annoying job of scraping off their bitter pith. You don't want this gunk to be in the meatballs. Then just give them a fine mince and set them aside. We'll also be mixing in 5 water chestnuts, smashed then roughly minced, 100 grams of pork fat gotten into a fine dice, and you could sub-sue it if you can't eat pork, and 25 grams of cilantro, also roughly minced. Last thing to prep, a ginger water slurry. First smash about an inch or so of ginger, then toss in a bowl together with 100 grams of hot, boiled water. Let that come down to room temperature, then toss in the freezer until it's ice cold. Then just strain out the ginger and add in 85 grams of water chestnut starch. Apologies for another less common ingredient. Water chestnut starch helps give this dish its characteristic texture. Don't fret if you've got extra though. This stuff's actually one of the traditional starches that were used before cornstarch came to China, so feel free to use for stir fries and the like. Mix that in, and we can make some beef balls. So now after those 3 hours in the fridge, the beef will feel much softer. Toss in your ginger water slurry and stir for a couple minutes with your vintage stand mixer set to medium. Then add in 15 grams of liaojiu, aka Shaoxing wine, stir well to incorporate, 10 grams dark soy sauce and 10 grams light soy sauce, and stir that well to incorporate, 5 grams salt together with a quarter teaspoon MSG, and stir that well, and 30 grams of sugar, you get the idea. Now add in the cilantro, the water chestnuts, and the tangerine peel, give it a good mix, then go in with the diced fat. Combine, and then to develop springiness, we'll do my favorite technique in all of Chinese cooking, da-ing the mixture. So continuously slam that mixture down against the bowl for about a minute to dot it, then add in 75 grams of peanut oil together with 10 grams of toasted sesame oil. Mix that for about a minute, Dot a couple more times for good measure, transfer over to a bowl, wash your hands, and let that chill in the fridge for about a half an hour. Now, if you get these beef balls at dim sum, they'll usually be steamed along with some fuju, that is, tofu skin. Optional but recommended, reconstitute these guys in cool water for about 30 minutes as your beef mixture is chilling. Now to form the meatballs, first add a layer of your reconstituted fuju to a steaming plate. Then oil your hands, take a 70 to 75 gram bit of the beef mixture, form it into a ball, and lay it on your plate. Now this would be one serving at dim sum right here, so let's just steam that real quick and we'll get back to the rest of these in a minute. So move your plate over to a pot of rapidly boiling water, the adorable bamboo steamer is optional by the way, and let those steam on high for 20 minutes. Then 20 minutes later, shut off the heat and let it chill there for another 2 minutes. Remove, and with that, your beef balls are done. To serve this, however, it just wouldn't be complete without some gipzup on the side, commonly known in English as Worcestershire sauce. Back to the rest of the beef balls now. This recipe will undeniably make extra unless you're feeding a crowd. To keep, toss on a big plate and steam in the same way. Once they're down to room temperature, transfer over to a box for freezing. Then you can heat them up whenever, no need to thaw, just give them at least 10 minutes in a steamer.
So you may be surprised to see gipzup in dim sum, but it's kind of a common dipping sauce actually. You also see it in spring rolls and such. But anyway, this one just works really well with the dry tangerine and cilantro flavor profile. So check out the red link in the description box for detailed recipe. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.